Hi, my name is Cassidy Malvitch. I'm a undergraduate student currently completing a bachelor's in student ministry. I should be graduating this semester if all goes well, and I've really enjoyed this class a lot. I chose this as an elective because I've always had a fascination with other cultures and with their religions and the aesthetics surrounding them. And so I've really enjoyed getting to know some religions and some cultures that I have not been exposed to. And so I've really enjoyed this class. And one of my favorite in particular is the culture of Japan. And I think that's the same for a lot of Westerners because there's been a lot of go-between Japan and the US. But there's this deep aesthetic that goes along with Japanese culture of love for nature and harmony, and also this duality of tradition and innovation, whereas there is these entrenched arts that they have honed and mastered the craft in, but also are open to creativity and innovation. So I've always loved that about Japanese culture. And I think that really flows into one of the core concepts in Japanese culture that are highlighted in The Japanese Mind, the book that I've chosen to do my project on. And this concept is called Iitoko Dori. It really is the adoption of foreign elements from other cultures into Japanese culture, but even taking those elements and adapting them and making them their own, kind of merging them with their own culture. And we see this early on in Japan's history, when from China, Zen Buddhism kind of came and took the religious spotlight, but at the same time they maintained their older, more traditional beliefs of Shintoism, which is a form of animism where nature and ancestors are worshipped because there are these spirits, the kami, that live within them. And Zen Buddhism really is this form of Buddhism as we know it that has stemmed from China, but got into Japan, and focuses on the releasing of one's mind from intellectual, rigid categories in a way. They seek to see these paradoxes, this duality in the world, and kind of a relative reality, as it may be. And this is really reinforced, this idea of Iitoko Dori, that they can adopt foreign elements and then not be at odds with one another, even if they are a little bit contradictory. And we see this further on in Japanese history, when the modern culture of the West really took Japan by storm. And they have quickly adopted it into their own, not losing their old traditions, because again, they're able to adapt them without there being this contradiction, this mistrust between them. But they build this harmony that goes between these two seemingly warring philosophies of Western individualism and capitalism, and this group-centered traditional beliefs of Japan. And so Westernization has really shone a light on how Iitoko Dori works in Japan. And there's this mutual interest between our cultures. I would say that in America we see that anime and Japanese games and entertainment and technology, cars, all of these different things. Stop it. All of these different things have become commonplace in our culture, and to agree that we really have a deep admiration in a lot of people for Japanese culture and the aesthetics surrounding it. On the other side, we have Japan, who, whereas we admire their culture in a somewhat superficial way. We love the aesthetic, we love their food, things like that. They've really adopted our culture in a completely different way. They've adopted democracy and a capitalistic big business culture, but have maintained their group-centeredness in a way that has not disturbed the original traditions of Japan, although a lot of those traditions are now waning because of it. And so we see they adopt our culture in a different way than we have adopted theirs. And really the root of this is not only at the root of their religion, which is Zen Buddhism, but also at the root of their social norms as well. Because we see that one of their highest values is harmony. Harmony between humans and nature, harmony between one another, because they're group-centered, because they live on an island nation. And long ago, if you did not cooperate with one another, if you did not work together as farmers in a community, then you wouldn't have enough rice for the season, and your community might starve. And so there was this deep need for harmony, for maintaining peace and balance between individuals. And so this is really at the root of this idea of Iitoko Dori, that we cannot have warring philosophies and warring ideologies in our culture, and so we make harmony with them and allow them to seep in just enough that we can reap the benefits of them, that we can grow from them, but not enough that they completely root out everything that came before. And so we see that, one, that Iitoko Dori finds itself in the religions of Japan, that it's really shown itself in westernization, and that it's rooted in the social norms of Japan. And for the individuals of Japan who one might come in contact with when trying to share the gospel with them, this really gives them a unique experience that we have to take into account. This is that they have the rare phenomenon that often they might hold somewhat contradictory beliefs and not really acknowledge that they're contradictory. It may not appear that way to them. They may see it as these two things can maintain in harmony. They can coexist. They don't have to be at odds with one another, even if, whereas we value objective truth, and we're really looking for one truth in our culture. They're looking for truths in a more plural sense. So for these individuals, we have a unique opportunity because of westernization, not to say that, modernization and all of that often comes with bad things as well. But it is really allowed for Christians in America to have inroads into Japanese culture, and they're already aware of a lot of our culture, and they're used to it. They've seen it. And so it really gives us this opportunity for witness that we must take hold of and take advantage of. And on the other hand, it requires very special care, because while these individuals are very open to different ideas because of Iitoko Dori, because other cultures are not necessarily bad in their view, at the same time, we have to take special care as we would with a Hindu who believes that there are many different gods, and that it's not really about one God, but your devotion to whoever you may choose. But for the Japanese, there are different truths. And so we have to take special care not to abandon the objectivity, the exclusivity of Christianity, that Christ has died once and for all men, and that grace through faith is the only way to receive that. But that we must take care not to rush the process, not to force them to too quickly abandon everything that they've known and loved, because they're an honor-centered culture. They have deep roots in the groups that they're a part of, and the people that they live amongst, their family and their friends and their neighbors. And so we must take into account that those things mean a lot to them, and we have to be careful not to rush that process. So my battery is dying, so I'll let you go, but I appreciate listening to my presentation. I hope that you learned something about Japanese culture from it. And for any of you who are going into foreign mission fields, I just extend a prayer for you that would go well, and that Christ would be with you and grant you success in those endeavors. Goodbye.